Welcome to Twisted Remedies. I'm your host, Justin Kucher, and this is a podcast about the benefits of jiu-jitsu and other non-traditional remedies in trauma recovery. All right, everyone, we are back here on Twisted Remedies podcast. I am here today with not only someone I worked with, but someone that I consider a friend of mine. So this could get out of hand. My guest today is Lieutenant Jason Wetherby from St. Albans Police Department. Jason is a lieutenant there, spent many years there. I'll have him kind of talk about how all of that started and his path to law enforcement later. He is also a certified peer support team leader. Recently became a peer support person for Frontline Foundations, who, if you've been listening to the show, Joe Gorman was on, Mike Cancelleri was on, a bunch of people have been on who are loosely affiliated or directly affiliated with Frontline. So Jason is now one of those people, and excited for him because that's going to be a really cool role and a good person to have in that role. So I just said a lot of stuff. Jason, welcome to the show, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you, for sure.
Yeah. What kind of just walk us through how you got started in law enforcement and ended up sitting at a desk at St. Albans PD as a lieutenant? Not that he doesn't just sit at a desk. He goes out and drives around too. But
unfortunately,
right now,
it feels like more of that is behind a desk now. But, well, it's a long story, but not really, I guess, right? It seems like it was a blink of an eye. I was just having a conversation with someone tonight, and I'm like, 1 minute you're sitting there with an idea in a college classroom, and now you're 20 years down the road. But, yeah, I mean, I grew up in the area in Vermont and worked on a farm growing up. Joined the volunteer fire department at like 16. Really enjoyed that. My grandfather worked in the Department of Corrections, and he really kind of piqued my interest more in law enforcement in my college years. For whatever reason, that's just kind of where I landed at Castleton. Did some criminal CJ classes there, got a degree. I started working Parks Patrol for St. Albans PD one summer. One of the kids down there that I went to school with, he's like, oh, you got to do this. Check this Parks Patrol program out up at St. Albans. He says, it's kind of cool, good money. I think you'd have fun. So I did that one summer, and the captain at the time, he calls me and he goes, how would you like a full-time job? That sounds great. Why not? I think I did like a year, maybe a part-time, and then jumped right into the full-time class. And that was in 2005. I started here at St. Albans. Yeah, I'm still here. I've done a lot of cool things along the road. I did a lot of stuff in traffic enforcement. I was a canine handler. I've been on our tactical team for a long time. I'm the commander for that now. I was a school resource officer. I don't know. I dabbled in a lot of things and got to do a lot of training, meet a lot of different people, and definitely helped me build my career and me, who I am, honestly, personally. That's kind of my career story, I guess, in a nutshell.
Yeah, and you had, do I remember right, that you had like some volunteer fire service along the way as well, like early on or still?
Yeah. In high school, I joined the local fire department. In college, I was on Castleton Fire. And, I don't know, 10 years into law enforcement career, I did a little bit with the St. Albans City Fire Department. Didn't necessarily work out with time. And I'm currently now on the Fairfield Fire Department, volunteer department at home. And I really enjoy it. It's, especially now, I don't have to tell anybody what to do. They tell me what to do. Still get to do the cool things and play with the big trucks. And I don't know. It's rewarding. It gives back to the community. It fulfills me and like-minded people, good group of guys and gals.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm
service has been kind of a recurring theme throughout. I mean, you said this all sort of started. The idea of this started when you were young. So like service has been a piece of that for a long time.
Yeah. Somehow along the way, I've always been. Don't ask me how, but just volunteering for certain things and giving back to people and trying to make myself better along the way, and those around me, I guess, doing what I can with what I got.
So I was thinking about this. You and I think we had met. You weren't there when I worked at St. Albans the first go around in the late 90s, which just dated me. But I think you and I met somewhere along the way when you had the dog before I had come back to the PD. But I know that, like, I knew of you. I knew who you were. I think we had, loose kind of interacted here and there. But I remember coming back to the PD, and then you and I just kind of I don't know. I feel like we hit it off, and I don't know that we worked together some, but it wasn't even a lot. But I don't know. It just felt like, oh, this is somebody I have stuff in common with, and we kind of hit it off. And then, that grew into, I don't know. I think it morphed into shared experience and just kind of speaking similarly about events that we had both kind of similar events we had been through. I don't know if you
Yeah,
have the same recollection of that, but
yeah, no, for sure. It's like it's so interesting when you actually take time to slow down and think about things. Or yeah, I think I knew you when with task force work and other units that you'd been involved with, just the ugly goatee guy, and working with some of the other folks here at the office. But it was when you came here, I was relatively new to the lieutenant's position, and for a lieutenant in Burlington. And I talked about intimidating a little bit, right? And then I met you, then I knew otherwise. But
right.
no, but it was good. It was good because I knew that you had a lot of experience, and I did not necessarily have a ton of experience, not only in the administrative field, but you'd been in law enforcement for as long as you had. And I definitely think we hit it up. I leaned on you a lot, and I guess what you're trying to say, or what I'm trying to say, is there was more of a personal connection too.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
me, and I had trust in you, and whether that was by virtue of your character or that you'd done the job that I'm trying to do now, or at the time, whatever it was, there was something there. And ironically enough, for me, that was it's kind of the beginning of, I won't say my undoing, but maybe my redoing, as far as not necessarily a tipping point, but just coming to terms with a lot of stuff that I had going on that I didn't even realize I had going on. And I knew you'd been through some stuff, which led to conversations like, hey, what do you do? What have you done? You
right.
seem like you're put together. Like, how do I do that?
It's all smoke and mirrors sometimes.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I have a whole new understanding of smoke and mirrors for sure, but masking, social masking. But anyway, so yeah, that was great. Ultimately, and like I said, ironically enough, having that conversation with you is what got me started with Beth. And I know
Right.
Beth's been on the show.
Yep.
I think we talk about her regularly. And it got me started on a path with her and EMDR and just a whole new world of things, which was great. And having that interaction experience with you and her and everybody else has kind of given me a little insight and to be able to hopefully do that for other people. Maybe not necessarily trying to, but being open and present and willing to share and discuss and just meet people where they're at if they need to be met somewheres.
Yeah.
You know?
We're going to go deeper into that later because I got a lot to say about that topic after after some recent events. But we'll keep that out there as a little carrot for everybody listening. Oh, you mentioned kind of your path through your career, and it's not if you're doing the math at home, you started in 2005. It's now 2025, so that's 20 years. Department of 3 people or a big city department, that's still 20 years in law enforcement, and it's I made the mistake. I didn't really make the mistake, but I was talking to someone the other day and I said, well, yeah, your experience at the city you're at is much different because you're in a bigger city than I worked in. And they pointed out it's really not. It's still, you're seeing the same stuff. Maybe the volume is different, but you're seeing the same stuff. And I think that's a good distinction to make because what does Joe always say? Terminal uniqueness, right? If you start comparing stuff that you don't need to compare. So I think about you having 20 years this year. Obviously, we've talked about kind of your journey through things, but like, is there a moment where you realized that, hey, all of this stuff, all of this, whether it's cumulative or one event or whatever it is there a moment that you realize like, oh, this is actually starting to affect me? Like was there, do you remember like a light bulb moment?
I'm still waiting for the light bulb moment. I feel like every day I'm searching for the aha moment, but no, I know I know what you're saying. I know what you mean. It was a long time in. It was, it's probably 14 or 15 years into it. I'd been through my first divorce, the first marriage, first divorce. I met my current wife, and I think the aha moment was, well, we got time, so
We got
I
plenty of
guess
time.
so. There's some stuff that had happened in my career. A lot of my career, I think, looking back on it, and me as an individual was a lot of asking and just kind of doing what I thought should be right. Mimicking the room, what do people want, and not really being true to me and myself and who I was, or not even really identifying that. I mean, I started in, the fire service at 16 years old. I got into law enforcement at 21 years old, and that's been my life, one way or the other. So I don't think I really had a time to build a good identity for myself. So after my first divorce and some stuff that happened at the PD that I was involved with, those seemed to start to be catalyst events, or not wanting to identify them as such. I took up running. I was like, you know what? I got all the time in the world. I wanna run a marathon. I want to do this. So I started running. When I say I started running, I ran every day, 6 days a week, 7 days a week. And before you knew it, I ran a couple marathons. I don't know, one summer I did like 13 half marathons, and I thought it was great. I was in control of my own pain. How weird does that sound now? But I was in control of my own pain. If I was going to be struggling with something, it's going to be something that I chose to struggle with. And that may be running 13 miles that day or 20 miles that day or whatever it was. And that gave me a sense of satisfaction or ownership over it. I'm in control. Gave me that sense of control. And I also got the weird medals at the end. And, everybody's like, oh, cool, you did that. It was just a weird thing. I tell you that part of the story because fast forward to meeting my current wife and my last wife. She knew me during the running phase, and that's when she met me. Everything was good. Everything was hunky-dory. Was masking what was really happening inside my head with completing a race. And when I feel like crap, I go run 5 miles, and the endorphins and the feeling of success was good. And I carried myself with that Band-Aid of that physical exertion, shall we say. Life happens. You don't always have the opportunity to run 6 or 7 days a week until all your problems go away, right?
Or your legs fall off.
Yeah, or your legs fall off, whatever it is. So life happens, promotions at work, changes in the job, children come into play, you buying houses, building houses, blah, blah, blah. That starts to happen. I stop slowly running, stopping my running into things, and this different person emerges. A different person emerges. Not the jovial, happy-go-lucky, just person that I enjoyed being. It was more of the stereotypical, turned into a grump, drinking, just a different person. It's
Yep.
like a Jekyll and Hyde almost.
Yep.
And, she had the wherewithal after putting up with more shit than she should have, probably. Well, not probably, more shit than she should have. And to this day, still has the wherewithal to tell me the things that I need to hear and bring to the forefront those things. So when that first happened was, I think, around the same time that I came in here asking you, like, you ever talk to anybody? What do you do? How do you make this work? Where do I start? Right? And that just opened a whole new chapter, several chapters in my life and my being.
Yeah.
So
I think
that was
that
a long answer to your
masking.
question.
No, that's good. That masking you're talking about, though, is, I'm sure it's not unique to first responders, but I think we get so good at it because you're so like your little group, right? Like I think about, like, I did that too. I was the guy cracking jokes, always, sarcastic, throwing, but the more that went on, the number I got, and I've never really asked anybody this, but I would wager that the people that I worked with daily had no idea that I was like, that I would like, so that mask that you're talking about, like, that's an effective facade that goes on. It's,
Well, I mean, think about it. For me, anyways, the way I've started to be able to process it is you think about our careers and what we do for work, and you go from a traffic stop, could be a normal traffic stop, everything's just happens, you go to a dead body. And then you got to break from that when the detectives get there, whatever it is, and then you run to, I don't know, the woman whose kid just walked out of the house and she don't know where. And those are the examples I kind of use, but over time, you have to become a professional at masking. Like, I'm not going to go from the dead body where that carries a whole lot of different emotions for different people. And then this woman that her child ran away, you're not going to treat that situation the same as you would from the one you just came from. You could go a 10, 12-hour day from one extreme on the emotional spectrum to the other, and you learn to manage it, because that's kind of, unfortunately, literally unfortunately, what we have to do to get by for ourselves and for the people that we're serving. And that's just kind of the way I looked at it, and that becomes the norm. That's the mask you put on. For me, what I put on and took off. And the problem is you change the mask so much, is you try to have a mask at home when you go home, but the people that truly know you and know what you can be see through the bullshit. That's what it was for me. And there comes a point in time where the mask just doesn't work. You just burn out. No, I don't think a lot of people at work, they probably say that some things changed or I had changed or whatever, but I don't think a lot of people know are new.
Right. So looking back on prior to that, we aren't going to call it a light bulb moment because you're still waiting for that. But the moment when things started to shift, prior to that, looking back, are there times where you now go, I should have recognized it at this point, or I should have recognized it at this point? I know that's easy to say now, but I think the benefit of talking about that is, somebody listening to this goes, oh, there were moments, and then maybe they're like, oh, I'm in one of those moments now, and then they can fast forward to the the shift and not wait 13 more years or whatever.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I think when you really look back, I'm sure there's a dozen times. Socializing with, not having friends with anyone other than police officers could have been an indicator. The amount of drinking that I was doing, the lack of feeling or emotion. People talk about numbness, and unless you've experienced it or are experiencing it, it just sounds like another cool term that people say as far as numbness goes. When you go to family funerals and you just don't feel anything. When you go to a wedding and you don't feel anything. Things that are, for most common folks, I guess we should say, normal people would be, use that term loosely. It triggers some sort of emotional reaction in life. And when you stop having moments that are triggering emotional reactions, that should be a sign. That should have been a sign for me a long time ago.
I missed that sign as well. I drove right past that sign at high speed.
Yeah. And it's just like, I think that's just kind of what you do. Like, oh, that must be the job. Like, how am I supposed to feel any different? Am I supposed to feel any different? Should I? Shouldn't I? I don't know. I never had really a lot of people to have an in-depth kind of conversation with. Like, part of what I do now, I position, and I go to the academy. I'm a training assistant at the academy for each class for a week. I try to tell some stories about these things and make it real and bring it to the forefront and plant the seed, and have that conversation while you're still in the academy. When you come back to this office and you're on field training, just to be like, if this happens, it might not, but if it does, talk to somebody about it. Talk to me about it. Ask a question. Because saying, oh, it's normal, suck it up, get over it, and keep going, it is a method. You will not fare well in a few years. I can tell you that from personal experience. I don't know if I answered your question because I tend to ramp.
No, that's good. This show is really all about rambling. That's what I do. I think that's you talking about in the academy. I think about when I went through the academy when did I go full time? Was 2000. When I went through in 2000, like, I don't remember anything meaningful around this topic. There might have been some, sometimes the job's hard, suck it up kind of, but there was no, like, okay, so what do I do about that? After I've played the suck it up game to the point where I'm numb, I'm drinking, I'm, like, falling apart, but masking it, like, all of that stuff. Like, I don't remember any conversation that really talked about, here's how to combat that. So I think the fact that, maybe you're not the only one down there talking about that, but the fact that you and other people at the academy level are at least normalizing that is huge.
Yeah. Boy, I don't know. I wish that there was somebody that had that kind of conversation ahead of the game. And I think that the proof is in you don't know what you don't know until you know, and when I started doing some of the EMDR work, I think in general, me as a person, I'm like, I've always been able to find a quick fix. And I think that's another thing that can lead to a problem in our mental health journey and recovery as first responders. And some people in general, doesn't have to be just first responders. Think about what every one of us does for work. If there's a problem right now, we have to figure out a solution that is going to be safe, effective, and cause the least amount of harm to the least amount of people as effectively and quickly as possible. And then if that happens, great. Everybody that should be safe is safe. The world goes on. The
Well,
day goes on.
and we don't have the luck. Well, I can't say we anymore. You don't have the luxury of getting it wrong.
Yeah, there's a
the
lot of that.
expectation is you don't get it wrong. You have to be right and do like you have to make the best of your decision in the moment. And boy, it better be a good one.
Yeah, and you know, you always hear the adage of like, you know, even if it's the wrong decision, make it and go with it.
Yeah.
In some situations, you know,
Right.
because standing there like a squirrel in the middle of the road wondering which way should I go to not get hit is going to get you hit. So you have to make those decisions, stick with them, work them through. Now, I preface that with this story because in life, it's like, oh, for me, okay, yeah, I'm reacting this way when somebody else does this. Let me read this book. Boom, cool. I think I'm better now. Oh, wait, it's a month later and I'm doing the same thing again. Oh, I went and saw Beth once or twice. I'm fixed. That's not going to happen anymore. Correct. That's a hard pill to swallow, and it's hard. It was hard for me and a lot of people, I think. There's not, you're trying to take 15, 20 plus years of, wiring this motherboard in your head. You're trying to break that solder, put it to a whole new different connection and rewire it and keep that solder strong and make that electrical path go that way now. You know, and that's not something that happens overnight. You can't undo.
And I think you're learning how to solder in the process.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah. It's a whole new art.
Yeah.
It's a whole new art. It's a whole new world for sure. Yeah, that I and a lot of people I think you just totally forget about. You know?
To the extent that you want to or whatever level you want to go in, like can you just talk about your path to I'm going to say recovery, and I know that can be a loaded term and I'm finding it fluctuates, but can you just kind of walk through your path to coming out the other side or coming to where you're at now?
Yeah. What does that path look like? It's a back country road that turns into glass and goes uphill and downhill a lot. Sun's not always shining, but no. And that's the truth. I think the path, where did it go? I went from kind of where I started earlier. When the masking techniques didn't work, I found I have a family and I have a woman. I guess I can't really put into words what she actually does to support me and bring me back down to earth sometimes. You know, and that was kind of a struggle at times. You know, I got to a really low point. I was drinking a lot, depressed, you know, the thoughts in your head that nobody should have. It got really low at one point. And that was even after I started. And I think that was another part of the discussion that nobody ever has with you is to get good things, you got to work hard. And whether that's going to the gym to get jacked, you don't go once and get that, you know, that body. You have to keep going, and it's hard. So that's part of that journey that I didn't have the conversation with anyone with, but it's going to suck, it's going to be hard, it's going to struggle. So coming to terms with that, having the intestinal fortitude to keep going and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, I guess was difficult, and is still difficult to this day. But as far as the path goes, the journey goes, it's having that, you have to have the mentality to keep on looking for new things to do, being consistent with the things that work, you know, and not laying off. You know, at Twisted Remedies, it's jujitsu stuff, and you've talked a lot about that on the show, obviously. It can be a lot of things for a lot of people. You know, I started doing the Qigong meditation stuff. If you'd have said Qigong or meditation to me 4 years ago, I'd have been like, okay, dude, sure. But, you know, you have to open yourself up to be able to try things and be consistent with that to see if it's going to work. So I do that stuff consistently, try to do it consistently. And I can tell you when I don't, I know it, and everybody else knows it too. That whole answer was a very effective way of explaining my journey all over the place. All over the place.
Yeah. Were there any milestones that I mean, obviously you mentioned EMDR. Like I remember you and I sitting in the office you're in right now. I was on the other side of the desk, kind of where the camera is. And we were having this conversation and I was probably rambling because, you know, that like I remember this was like a relatively newfound thing for me as well at that point. So I was like, I got to share this with people And kind of like, I mean, that's what led to the show ultimately too. But like, I felt like I have to share this so that other people can find this a success. And I remember talking to you about EMDR, and you had this look on your face like, what? And I think I even referred to it as I often do, as voodoo magic. And I'm like, it's going to feel crazy when you first go in there and she's waving her fingers, but trust me, let it work, trust the process. And so like when I think of milestones, for me, that was the right EMDR therapist was a milestone. Anything jump out for you as something that really tipped the scale?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question because I never thought of it that way. I never thought of the milestones. I don't think we ever think of the things that are like, I don't think everybody gives themselves credit for, where you've come and where you are and whatnot. But so I appreciate that question. EMDR was a big thing, for me. Yeah, it's voodoo magic, right? One of the first times I went and actually did that EMDR with Beth, I was skeptical, but man, what a crazy ride that was, and it wasn't necessarily even there. It was the emotional roller coaster there, but it was like the following night or nights. And for me, it was always, I at least attached my cart to this horse of if it's a good session, I'll have some weird dream or something. And, and usually I'll sleep better. I went from sleeping 3, 4, 5 hours a night to like actually being able to sleep, which was, that was a milestone for me, making connections, remembering things that I had totally forgotten as we do these EMDR sessions.
Good and bad, unfortunately.
Yeah,
But
no, for sure.
yeah.
Absolutely. So that's a milestone for sure, is you'd be sitting there and as she's doing her fancy thing towards the end of the perceived end of the session, something else will pop into your head and be like, where does this come from? And then you get to do a little deep dive on yourself and let your body do its thing. And, dreaming is an interesting concept now for me anyways, but just kind of exploring those things and letting your mind go wherever it needs to go to unpack, and I think another kind of milestone was, I think kind of maybe an eye opener, maybe not even a milestone, is when my son was born. When my son was born, I think I was still I wasn't doing EMDR at that point. I was still very emotionally numb. But that moment, there was a moment, several moments after he was born, where I had this overjoyed an emotion that I hadn't felt in years. And I was like, holy crap. What is this? Like, that's normal, I guess. It's like, what is this experience I'm having? So that was kind of a little, carrot that was dangled in front of me. Like, these are feelings you can still have, bud. And then on top of everything else that existed after that, it's like learning to walk again. I've told some people that it's learning to walk again.
Yeah.
How do you feel happy? Like legitimately happy? How do you feel sad and upset? And all of these things that you should be able to feel, and then being able to manage that again. Those are moments that kind of stick out for me. Having conversations with my wife and family, and every little progress for me is important. It could be the way I react to a situation at home and having the wherewithal to not automatically respond, but be able to catch myself, hopefully, before I automatically respond, be able to recall from other situations and be like, okay, the last 25 times I've done this, it's been a bad result. And try to navigate a more effective way of being present and doing those things. But it could be anything. It could be a conversation you have with someone on the street. It could be a conversation with a coworker, a family member, someone at the academy. Little wins are big.
Yeah. I think so. I don't know if you consider this a milestone, but this stuck with me. You told me this story, and I'm probably going to get it wrong. But you were somewhere doing something with your family, and your wife turned and looked at you, and you were smiling, and she was like, I don't know if she said like, what's wrong with you, or what are you doing, whatever it was, and you were like, I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And like it sounds goofy, but like that's a real thing. And
Yeah.
like that stuck with me because like I didn't have a moment where I had a conversation about that, but I remember just all of a sudden one day like, I like, oh, I'm feeling stuff, and that hasn't happened for a while. And it was like maybe a little glimmer of it, and then it went away, and it would come back. It wasn't consistent right out of the gate, but that
Yeah, well,
story,
no.
when you told me that, I was like, that is definitely a thing.
Yeah, and that makes you think a lot too. It's like it is definitely a thing, and now it's like, why are you smiling? It's like I don't know, I'm just happy. It's cool. Like I don't know, it's all good.
But the
But when
fact
you
that
go
somebody's
so long,
asking because it's out of character
yes,
because of the
yes,
masking.
yes, yes, yeah, yeah. It's when the norm becomes like just whatever the norm is, and a smile is out of the norm. That's scary. That's
Well, and I think
scary.
people can tell when it's a smile because you're truly happy and smiling, or your mask has a smile on it. Like
The people.
there is a difference, and the people close to you can see that.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, anybody can go up, any meathead can do this job. Anybody can go up and in front of an audience and smile and tell a song and dance and be like, that's pretty cool, but they see what's presented to them, but they don't know what's behind the mask, and the people that are closest to you often face the brunt of a lot of that, unfortunately. You talk about other things that are aha moments. Pictures are big, right? Like I like to take pictures of the family and out and all that good stuff. And there's a picture that's in my bedstand, and it'll be there, and it'll go with me on wherever I need to take it. And I hate the picture. I hate it with a passion. And it's a family picture at Christmas. We're all standing in front of the Christmas tree. And that picture carries such of a before and an after, and the image, the look on my face is like, it's disgusting. I don't wonder my wife and family feel the way they feel sometimes. And I just, no wonder. Like, look at this picture. And I look at this picture sometimes and to try to, help not allow myself to go back there. And then this year, we went to get the Christmas tree with the kids, and it was fun. It was good. We were happy. And the smile on the picture on my face in the picture we took this year, when you look at that, if I held them up side by side, some people probably won't be able to tell the difference. Anybody that's talked to me or knew me more than 5 minutes would be like, holy crap, dude. What are you on in that picture? Like, did you drink before you went? So that's important. That's a big thing for me, is having those comparisons to be like, yeah, you are moving in the right direction. And it might not be a fast process, but it's a process that needs to happen nonetheless.
That's cool that you have like a visual representation that is so distinctive that you can look at and go, here it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's tons of memories you can draw on, but I think that one's very important because it's a holiday and everybody's supposed to be happy, and the family's in it. Well, it's not just me standing there. It's so much more to be. I think it's an expectation that you should have for yourself, but as a father and a husband, that should be priority one, and it should be being there for them and being part of that family unit. Just, and then, whether you're at work and whatever position you have at work, you want to be able to be good at that. It's interesting. A lot of the stuff that I've experienced is hard to put into words or
Yeah.
a valid, effective story, so to speak. It's interesting, to say the least.
As you look back on your 20 years, is there training, resources, support that, knowing what you know now, was missing for the last 20 years? I mean, obviously the profession itself has evolved. I think we're doing collectively a better job than we did 20 years ago, 25 years ago. But I'm curious if you can put your finger on, like, what is there something that might have made a difference and got you out from under, or at least more aware as you're going through these things?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, hindsight's 2020, right? But I'd like to think there's certain things that I could have seen or done, or classes that I could have taken that would have changed the trajectory. Um, Obviously, I don't know that for sure, but you think of I feel like a lot of things were just done because it was a box check. These guys dealt with a fatality with a train. Maybe we should have somebody come in and sit them all in a room. And I'm not saying this is a bad thing per se, if done the right way, but that's all just somebody you've never met before. You bring them in, you sit there for an hour, and then you leave and call it good. Here's a card. Call me if you feel funny or like what.
Well, and that's not like I've been in those where that works for some people, but there are some people that is inherently worse for their processing or whatever they're working through. And I actually I remember a friend of mine, I still see him. We were in one of these after I think it was one of the homicides in Burlington, and he was there, and the person is going through their debrief spiel, and he put his hand up and he's like, "I'm glad you guys like this is great for all of you. This does not work for me, so I'm gonna go. Thank you." And he he got up and walked out. And he and I were talking about it a couple weeks ago, and I was like, that's a great illustration of you can't shove a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
Like it has to be really tailored to what the person needs.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, good for him for having the wherewithal to do that, honestly. And like, but again, I think like everybody wants to rubber stamp something, say they did it, and then when something happens, well, I don't know why that happened because, we did this debrief one time for 20 minutes. And I think also that one other thing that you don't think about, or I didn't think about until longer, is you don't know what the incident's going to be. And why is it fair for me to say this car crash and this call and this type of call are going to be the ones that bother you? And it could be anything. As I talk to people in the last couple of years, coworkers and friends and family and FLF folks, it can be anything from the smell of cigarettes on a call that sends somebody into a totally different world. It can be anything. So I think having an open communication with people that you work with or you have some sort of ability to help is important. Come in and say, okay, you went to a crash today. You should be feeling this way. Maybe you should talk to this person. Like, who am I to say that? Like, maybe they're fine with that. So I think open lines of communication from the get-go years ago would have been awesome. Conversations with someone that was senior to me, that had been doing the job for a few years, that could have a very blunt, open conversation, and instead of just playing every bad situation out to be this glorified, heroic or whatever it was. Like, oh, that was awesome. Yeah, that call was just freaking great.
Yeah.
So that's where I should be thinking the next time I go to a call similar to that.
Right. Yeah.
And the reality
like
is
somebody normalizing like it's okay to not be okay somewhere along
Yeah.
the way. Yeah.
not teaching to put the mask on.
Right.
Like,
Right.
there's a time and a place, right? There's a time and a place. And being vulnerable and taking your mask off in the middle of a call in a situation isn't going to work. I can almost guarantee that, right? But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be given the tools along the way to be able to out-process at the end of your shift. Whether that's through some sort of physical, whatever it is, works for you. We talk about it with some of our field training officers here. You come in and you're like, okay, you're going to ride with this one for a month, and this officer for a month, and this officer for a month. And each one of them is going to tell you how they do their traffic stop, how they approach a house, how they do this. And you're going to pick the one that fits your needs or you want to alter that works for you moving forward. That's going to be your style now. And that goes across the board with everything in law enforcement, firefighting, EMS, right? Except for mental health. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, well, go talk to this counselor and then you can come back. The counselor probably doesn't know what the hell's going on. And in my past experience with specific events, I'm personalizing it. So why are you going to make someone do one thing instead of offering multitude of things? Like, this is what Qigong is, and these are the benefits. This is the history of it. This is what it could help. Try it. This is meditation. This is the history of it. This is what may help. This is jujitsu. This is whatever those things are. Why can't we offer those out as tools for your tool belt, just like we do your taser and your pepper spray and your pen that writes in the rain and all that other happy horse shit. We're missing the biggest valuable asset if you want to look at it from a business standpoint, and that's the human being. The shelf life for a human being shouldn't be calculated as a shelf life. Like, oh, we're going to get 20 years out of that guy and he's going to be shit and send him packing down the road. Oh, we're going to get 15 years out of that gun, then we know we have to replace him. It shouldn't be that way. We're human people. We're human beings. We need to have more investment in the individual. And I don't want to say less investment in the tools, actual physical tools, but I think priorities
But at least
need
equal.
to shift. Yeah. Yeah, and I digressed on that, but I think those things, if they'd been available a long time ago, I think that would have been benefit. Normalizing it would be the thing, but at least I would have known, like, holy shit, this is something somebody else has experienced or is experiencing. Well, this isn't just the natural progression of being in law enforcement or public safety. Going numb. Okay, I go numb and that's life. What's next? I think that's why a lot of people, when they retire from public safety, they don't know what the hell to do. It's the only thing you've ever done is whatever job in public safety you've been in. You don't know how to have fun. You don't know how to experience anything. You've lost your identity. You've lost who you are. And I think that plays a major role in life after this career.
Yeah. So I want to shift gears a little bit because you have your story is a cool like vignette of, you were going through what you went through, you did some work, and now you're a peer counselor. You're still doing work, I'm sure, but that work, that work evolves over time, and it changes and it ebbs and flows, obviously. But you're now doing peer counseling, and can you just talk about like what got you into peer counseling? What's the goal? What's your approach?
What kind of sparked my, I don't even want to say interest in it, but it's more of a passion than an interest. And it started for me, I think, at home. When I started to realize the peripheral damage that had occurred, was occurring, still occurs, there's a part of me that wants to be able to not necessarily prevent, but help other people either A, not go through it or have to go through it themselves, or put their families and friends or whatever it is through it, or be able to pull that cart out of the mud about 15 years before. That's my goal. I think personally, there's people that go to, I keep saying the academy, but just kind of as an example, there's use of force instructors that go down there and they're really good at it and that's their passion and they love to do that. Motor vehicle law instructors, they love it. That's their passion. That's their thing. I want to be able to go down there and say, anybody can do this other stuff, but here's the stuff that's going to be a little harder that nobody's going to tell you about. Yeah. And with FLF, I went through the cohort. Oh boy, it's been a few years, couple years now, 2-3 years now. 20, I don't remember specifically. It's been a little while. That was a good experience, a great experience for me. Down in Bellows Falls, it was a week long. I probably wasn't a good student, if you want to say student. I probably wasn't a good participant at the time. It was good that I went through when I did, but I was still going through and being judgy at the time, like, oh my God, really, this is what I have to sit here and listen to somebody bitch about. That was me personally. By the end of the week, I started to get it, and now I really get it. Joe Gorman, he was on your show. What a guy, like, unreal. Like, I'm so grateful to have met that man. So humble, and grounding. You're not supposed to compare things, but if there's anybody that should be given a pass on being able to be an asshole, he's been there, he's done that. So he's an inspiration for a lot of people, and for me, he's come so far in his mental health journey that, he started this, he clearly, he saw something in me and what I could give potentially to people, and he reached out to me and said, hey, we're trying this peer support associate stuff. What's something you'd be interested in representing for FLF and law enforcement? And I was like, oh my God, super honored. But I took some time to think about it. And I really had to do a lot of deep diving and hot conversation with my wife, and because I tend to do things that derail me personally. So I didn't want this to become that. But nonetheless, it hasn't been a super heavy lift, but when you do have an opportunity to connect with someone, it's worth it. It's well worth it. And I always try to put my heart and soul into that. The answering of your question, making it so people don't have to necessarily go through the same crap we went through. You're going to go through the traumas. You're going to go through it by virtue of the line of work, but you don't have to come out of it the same way. You don't have to be in that dark hole as long. So that's kind of my kind of what got me into it in a nutshell is a different kind of service, I guess. Families, really, I really like to talk to the husbands and wives of families and let them know, statistically, I should be divorced again right now. I should be. But fortunately enough, I have the wife that I have, and she she's something. She's a blessing in disguise. I don't know if it's scary or if I should be scared or grateful some days, but no. But yeah. So anyway, helping people out, getting them there where they need
Yeah.
to be.
Well, so the carrot I dangled earlier, I think this is timely, but so an example of things going full circle, right? Whatever year 21, I think it was 22 because I was back from when you and I had the conversation in your office. I think I was back from treatment, or was I before that?
That was
It might have been
pre.
prior, actually.
I think it was pre.
Yeah. Okay, so 21, that would have been 2021. I had only been at the PD a couple months. You and I have this conversation. I'm not like I wasn't a peer support anything. I was just somebody who had some lived experience that I was sharing it with you. And then you go through your stuff, I go through my stuff, and we're on our individual tracks. And then fast forward to 2025, and here I am like, oh, I've done all this work. I'm on cruise control, and 2025 turns into a giant kick in the balls. One thing after another this year, culminating with I put this out on Instagram, so this isn't a secret, but I had to make a expedient trip down to Florida because my mother was in the hospital. She's still in there as of right now, doing better. But I'm down there, and things are unfolding that I had not counted on. And you had been checking in true peer support. You put your peer support hat on. You had been checking in regularly. And I remember a time where I'm having a very uncomfortable conversation, or helping my father have a very uncomfortable conversation with the doctor. And I'm immediately back in first responder mode because I have to solve this problem. Like there's no time for like at that point I had to put a mask on because I have to work through this. But as soon as that moment was over, I was like, I need to take a walk. So I went to my rental car in the parking lot in 90-degree heat and fell apart. And I remember I think I texted you. I couldn't talk, so I must have texted you. But you and I were texting back and forth, and for whatever reason, it was like the tables had completely turned, and now I'm sitting on the other side of the desk going, "Have you ever? Do you talk? What do you?" I don't know what to do, and it was. I remember like once after the moment had passed, I was like, and I think you and I talked about it. When I eventually talked to you on the phone down there, I was like, that was a pretty cool moment. That like, I guess I'm trying to say a few things. The journey is never really over, right? There's bumps in the road. There's for those I will have done this after this airs, but I'm going to Frontline next week for the cohort that Jason went to. Really just because this, all of my practices and all of the stuff that I rely on wasn't keeping up with everything. So like I'm going there to reset and put the monster back on the shelf and, put things back where they go and get some, just get a reset and get some more tools in the toolbox. But it was crazy to me that, you were able to, you filled that void that in that moment. And I'm very appreciative of that. So,
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that we should do as we go through these things, and I think the wisdom that comes if you allow it to come out through these experiences is just amazing. I said to my wife not that long ago, I'm like, oh my God, I'm 41 years old and I feel like I just barely am growing out of my juvenile brain finally, It's like, what the fuck? But it's interesting. I had that shared, sort of a shared situation with my mother, and then so I had that connection of knowing to a degree of what you were going through. I think that I've had experience in my life, we all have, where we left things unsaid because they were uncomfortable for us. And that's a problem that I have, when I was a freshman in college, I didn't go to my grandfather's funeral because I was sad and uncomfortable. And that's a decision that I have to live with, and that's an extreme, but there's so many things like that I remove myself from that discomfort because I didn't want to experience it, that you never get back. You don't know when that last opportunity is going to be to say what you need to say, do what you need to do. So in your situation there, I mean, it was just natural. It wasn't one of those things that was like, oh, I need to do something to get back to that. It's just, that's the beauty of it. When you let things happen, when you let things happen organically, and on their own, and you just flow with it, it just happens. It was good. I guess as bad as it was good timing. And I try to let things just happen like that. I know that if you force things, it's not going to end right. It's not going to end right. And honestly, the emotional feeling I get now from having the hard conversations that nobody wants to have, it sucks in the moment, but afterwards I feel so much better. You feel so much better about it. Like, you know what, this person, and it doesn't have to be an extreme of a family member or a parent. It could be a work decision. They might not be happy right now. It could be a home decision. She's not happy. My son's not happy. Whoever's not happy. But hopefully we can have a conversation, communicate, understand, and move forward. Because not communicating does absolutely nothing. So I guess that's just kind of like sharing some of the wisdom that I have gained. And it felt good too for me to be able to reach out to you because I was like, oh my God, this fucking gotta suck, man. Like, like, how's it going today? Like, how you doing? And I also know that too, right? Being on the other end of that is not having someone that will just ever necessarily be there because you've pushed them all away, or
right.
They're so uncomfortable, or they don't know how you're going to react, or you've pushed them away in the past. It's amazing, as much as sometimes I hate technology, like just a quick text of like, what's up today? How you doing? All good? Or whatever it is. Just checking in. I don't know. It could be any freaking text. And it's just that. It's like, hey, how's it going?
Yep.
Somebody's thinking of you today for that split second.
Right.
When those things pop in your head, maybe I should call such and such or shoot him a text. It pops in your head for a reason. Just do it. It takes 2 seconds.
What are your thoughts on, I know, I saw the transition of stigma over the years. It started to, it was losing ground as when I retired in 21. And then at St. Albans, I felt like there wasn't a ton of stigma around this topic, but I'm curious what your take is on just, and I don't mean St. Albans in general, but like on the profession, is stigma still losing the fight? Are we headed in the right direction?
I think if you look at it nationally, we're still losing the fight. You can look at the ODMP stuff or, any headlines, unfortunately, on a given week and see that. Well, maybe. I'm not going to generalize, but, you say not necessarily about sound. I am so proud of like being in the spot that I'm in with this department as a whole, with the men and women that work here. Holy crap. Excuse me. Mike and Lila came up from Frontline last year, a little over a year ago, and they did like a 4 or 5 hour class. It's like an introductory class to, breathing techniques, how your brain works, how your traumatic situations affect you physiologically. All those things. Great class. And part of that class was meditation. The class was not mandatory. It was, hey, this is the class. This is a brief description. I've been through the full class. Show up if you want to show up. And we packed that room. And it was full of dispatchers and police officers and Mike and Lila afterwards. And everybody was participating. We've all sat through the trainings where people are like smoking and joking and this is uncomfortable. So I'm guilty of it. Everybody was in tune and they just did it. And I know that there's some people that are still practicing that stuff, some people that ask questions, but I think the part that really I'm impressed with the most is even the ones, officers and individuals that I wasn't the tool or any of that, none of that was the tool for their belt. That's fine. They didn't care. They didn't talk down about it. They didn't be like, you guys are freaking weird. Or any of that crap, and seriously, you know how it goes.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And the guys that have been here for 20 plus years, having conversation with them, they're like, not my thing, but I will offer it and I will not talk shit about it and I will be a proponent for it as a tool for them if it works for them. So I think as far as stigma here at St. Albans goes, and from my experience, I think there's always room to improve. However, I think we're leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of other places. And it's very cool to be able to say that, to have it's, you can always tell, like when I first started working here, other agencies and friends and you know when you walk into a room and you're having a conversation that people are going to be like, if the room goes silent, you know that it's a stigma. Like, okay, we got to change the topic. So anyway, yeah, well, how about that game the other night? It's like, but here it's like, you could be talking about whatever the hell it is you want to talk about. And people will either just pass through, maybe they'll join in, whatever it is, but they're not turning around like, you guys are nuts. There's no way. I haven't experienced it. And it hasn't been brought to my attention. Nationally, yes. Other services, sure. You know, I think by virtue of your podcast, and then a lot of us individually just want to be able to go out and help everybody, right? You want to help everybody, but you have to affect those closest to you in your circle first before you can do that. You know, affect what you can affect, and then see where it goes from there. And that's you know. And a lot of times you don't even know you're affecting people, right? Hence our conversation, you know, and that circle of life, so to speak, how that's gone full circle. So yeah, I don't know. You'd have to talk about. I know the state police. I'm not a representative of the state police, and I will not talk. But they're doing a lot of other stuff too. They're venturing out. I know for a fact that they're venturing out into new realms to be able to provide some services, extra services, or other services to the troops too. So it's getting there.
Yeah.
It's getting there.
That's
Sure.
Trending in the right direction then. That's good.
I think so. It's just, it's like anything else, right? You gotta have somebody with their foot on the gas,
Yeah.
or at least feather in the gas.
Right.
Sometimes putting it to the floor isn't going to solve your problem, but you have to have consistency. Just like in our practices, to make any kind of change, you have to have consistency. And I think it's getting there. It's getting there.
So I round out every episode. I know you've listened to at least one or two episodes, but I ask everybody, I have a general idea, I think, what you're going to say, but these are just fun for me because then other people get to hear it. What are your twisted remedies? And I think you understand the concept. Sometimes for people who I interview who haven't listened to the show, I have to explain what that means, but I'm trusting that you know what I'm asking.
Yeah, no, I do. Yeah, for sure.
So.
And I knew you were going to ask me this too, and I'm like, what are my twisted remedies? But I think if I had to put something on it, I think it's probably like the Qigong. And if you don't know what it is, look it up. But it's like, it's cooler than yoga. But, it's interesting. It's good stuff. And talk about stigma. Like when I first started doing it, coming back from FLF, I was like, it's looking right. Or I'd get up early and do it, and then the wife's coming out, and I'm like, I'm just having coffee. What are you? But to the point now where it's like, they don't care. It's just I got videos of my 3-year-old like doing his own little version of, you know, the fluid body movements and Qigong. That's been cool for me. I really enjoy it. It gives me a couple things. As I get older, it stretches me out in the morning so I can move better. And it opens up a lot of, it allows my energy to kind of flow through my body, opens your brain up, gives you a time to be present physically and emotionally. And the really fun part is when you get to go, you know, I didn't talk about the retreat. I know you're ending this, but did a retreat with Frontline Foundations, and I got to share an experience with Josh Coates, who's one of the clinicians, counselors at Frontline. At Lake George, it was windy. Oh my God, the wind was like beating us, but we were out on this dock on Silver Lake, and we just did Qigong that morning for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and just being able to be there, be present, go through the motions, feel the rain and wind pelting off from us. But it was just a very cathartic experience, especially to be able to share that with someone else. And if I don't do it, if I get lazy and I lay off, that's when I really notice how much it is actually making a difference, having that time to go through that. So, yeah, Qigong is, that's my twisted remedy at the moment. And I think it's important to mention, you can cut this if you want. I think it's important that we need to realize that we can have more than one twisted remedy. We can have more than one thing that we're right now. And I think my running story is a perfect example of that. There's a time when I couldn't run and I didn't know what the hell to do. Or maybe a time when I'm sick or physically incapable of doing Qigong. I don't know. And then what do I do?
Well, this is part of why 25 for me has been the way it is, because January I hurt my back. So I was laid up for probably a good week and a half, 2 weeks. Right after that, I got COVID. Right after that, I was having crazy headaches, which led to spectacles. And then all the stuff with my mom. So I wasn't able to, like everyone listening knows, jujitsu is my big thing. But when I can't train, and that's part of my reason for going to to the cohort coming up is I need more stuff in the toolbox so that, okay, I can't train today, or maybe I just need a little extra today. So I'm going to do Qigong in the morning, and I'm going to do whatever. And I've been trying to create a routine on your own. And I feel like I'm sort of like a fish and floundering here and there, but that's a real thing. Like when you can't rely on the thing you rely on, it's noticeable. And, recognizing that is an important thing.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Well, that's a good one. And Mike will be happy that you said that.
Yeah.
He'll appreciate that.
Well, it's easy. Not necessarily easy to do, but it's not like one of those things where you need to make a lot of noise and you don't need to go out and go away to do it. You can do it in the hotel. You can do it in the living room. Like, you can do it outside wherever. Like, it's just one of those things you can do. Do it on the beach. It doesn't matter. You're it. So you take it with you. And there's some cool stuff too, like the guided meditations, the guided Qigong online, YouTube, all good stuff. It's just being open-minded enough to be able to try new things and accept those things. And I think in this profession, we're not always willing to do that. But there comes a point in time where your give a damn's busted. I don't give a damn what other people think at this point.
Yep. Yep.
Like the important part is now me and my family. It's not like what you think of me. If I look stupid and weird out there to you, cool, but I'm in my spot. I'm in my zone.
Good stuff. Anything coming up you want to plug? I mean, I know you're like a lieutenant at a police department. You probably don't have much to plug.
We're going to warrant around that. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I don't know. I guess as far as plug goes, I always recommend people check out Frontline Foundations. Check out their website. They're really expanding their network, so to speak. There's the Peer Support Associates. There's a representative for police, fire, EMS, military, dispatch. That was one of the hardest things for me, was when I reached out to them. I'll never forget it. I just had an argument with my wife. Should have happened. And I'm like on my phone, like, oh my God, I got to find something to do here. How do I help myself? What do I find something? And I literally stumbled, I think, across a website. And then I sent an email, I shot a text, or I did something interactive on the website. And like freaking 10 minutes later, I'm getting a text message like, hey man, you free for a call in like 5 minutes? And I'm like, holy crap, someone called me back or actually got in touch with me. And then I'm having this conversation like locked in my bathroom 15 minutes later. So I tell you that story because that was Mike. They're very receptive and responsive, and there's a bigger network now than there'd be a phone call or a text message. It can be an email. You got to get that ball rolling, find the right fit for you. Check out Frontline. And even if you don't think you're at a point, you never know what point you're at. If you're not at a point where you think you need to go to Frontline, cool, that's great. Then go now.
Right. Don't wait till the wheels are coming off.
Yeah, add some tools to your toolbox. Educate yourself on what would, and probably will happen, and grease those skids. Like I got some newer folks here that I'm like, oh now.
Awesome. Well, this has been cool. Strange because you're like a mile and a half from me.
Yeah.
But this is, I think this gets us some better quality product. But I appreciate this has been a great conversation. I know when we first talked about this, you were hesitant to do this, but I'm glad that either I wore you down or you had a change of heart or both and decided to come on. And I think this is such an important conversation for people who are in whatever stage of this process that they're in. I think it's important for them to hear it. So I appreciate you coming on and having it.
Yeah, I appreciate the invite and the opportunity, and it's all good stuff, man. I appreciate what you're doing. I really do.
Awesome. If you've enjoyed the show, please consider a like, a subscribe, or a share, or even writing a review. This helps the podcast grow and gets the word out to more people. As always, take care of yourselves and take care of each other.